How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my very first Twitch tips video. Today I'm going to be going over how I do my channel point redemption options that let my Twitch viewers affect my stream. This is the extended version of the TikTok video that I uploaded earlier today that was about a minute long. It was really quick, it didn't really go step by step, so this will be the amendment to that, and it'll let you do this kind of effect. What? And that happens all live. That's all done automatically live, and your Twitch viewers can affect that. So let's hop right on over. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to open up your editing software of choice. In my case, this is Adobe Premiere Pro. I already have my project here, but for the time being, we're going to open a new project and title it whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to call it DO Example. Make sure that all of your settings are what you want. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So you're going to come to a screen like this, obviously, and we're going to need to import all of our resources for this. This first step here is very important. Make sure that you take some sort of video recorded directly out of your streaming software. In my case, I took it out of OBS, and you put it into your sequence first thing. It'll give you some sort of warning like this if you didn't previously set up your sequence settings, and this will make sure that your workspace is exactly the same as your stream. Now that we've done that, I'm going to just copy in everything that I've already made, and I will do a step-by-step breakdown of how I made it. I initially made this all as one video, and then I had to break it into 3 different parts for when I imported it into OBS so that it can work seamlessly with channel point redemptions through Lioranboard. This is the first video that I made right here, and essentially it's just the intro to this channel point redemption. I just took a bunch of different GIFs from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Heritage for the Future. It's a fairly old fighting game from 1998. And I was able to find all of these on their wiki page and download them. I just took a bunch of different ones and I chopped them all together to make them smooth and to make them match the sound that I also put in here. So I've got Dio teleporting in, I've got him laughing, I've got him screaming Warudo. I then just kind of found a effect online that has a green screen, so we can go in here and I can disable this effect, and you can see this is a green screen video that I went in and used the Ultra Key function in Adobe Premiere Pro so that it can have this effect of the stop time JoJo's effect. And so when I combine these two, I get this effect right here where he screams Warudo. It has the sound effect of the poof, and it has this transition, and it just plays right over top the video. So now that I've got my first section, I've got this transition thing, I have to keep this separate. The reason I have to keep this separate is we're going to be putting it in as an actual transition in OBS, so this will all work smoothly. The next step is I'm going to build out this last section where Dio's laughing, and I will be going in after the fact and setting it up so OBS automatically takes a freeze frame at a very specific time so we can get this sort of Dio stopped time effect. For the time being, I just have, Dio laughing, and I've added in the laughing effects, and then I've taken this teleport sequence that I added at the beginning, I reversed it so he's teleporting out, and then put the same sound effect. Now, just to see the effect of what it'll look like in the finished product, you can see that this is the transition, and as it fades away, Dio's already in that corner, he's doing his thing, the freeze frame will have happened, and so, you won't see me dancing like a goof here, and then the rest of it happens and he transitions out. So now all we have to do is we need to disable these other videos that we've put in from our OBS or our XSplit or whatever, so that it's just a plain blank background. And we need to export each one of these as individual files. Now that we have all 3 of these videos finished, and you have your OBS clip disabled and muted, make sure that you mute it so you don't have any audio leaking through, you're going to go and you're going to export this. Now, the very important thing for this is we want this to be transparent, and we want this to be a small file size. So we're going to be using an encoding format called WebM. So what I recommend here for WebM is do not use this Adobe Exchange link. I will have this in the description. Use this FNord WebM link, because this will actually give you the correct version of the program that will enable you to export Alpha Channel, as you can see in this image right here on the left. So if we go over here, I already have a preset of basic WebM, and we'll just go through really quickly. I'm going to label this specifically, I'm going to go into my DO files because this is where I'm going to be saving it. I'm going to label it I can't spell, DO1. I'm going to label it DO1 so I know what I'm doing. An important thing that I forgot to do is make sure you go in here and you mark your ins and outs. And so you know exactly where this is going to start and where this is going to stop. So now that I have this marked in and out, you can see down here that it is only going to be exporting this section that I've told it to. We're going to go in and I'm going to show off this preset. So match source, because we used that initial OBS recording earlier, we will have a width and height of 1920 by 1080. That's very important because that's what in your case, it may be different. You might be streaming in 1440p or 720p, whatever your canvas size is for OBS, you need to make sure it's the same for your Premiere or your DaVinci or whatever program you're using. You need to make sure that the image settings are the same as your canvas in OBS. We're gonna have square pixel ratio, none for field type. I stream in 60 frames per second, and so I'm gonna tick that here. The next thing you need to do here is make sure you're using codec VP9. Method is constant quality, and for the quality setting itself, we're looking to have an estimated file size of 15 roughly. That's the rule of thumb that I've seen online, and so I'm just gonna bump up the quality a little bit. It shouldn't matter too much. But we're just going to do that. We're going to do 2-pass encoding. You can just look at the rest of these settings, max keyframe distance, sampling, bit depth, include alpha channel. This is the most important thing for this. You need to make sure include alpha channel is ticked. If you don't have that, make sure you have the FNORD version of WebM installed. You might have to go in and uninstall the Adobe Exchange version to make sure that this setting is enabled. And there's nothing else. You use maximum render quality and hit export. Now that we've finished this, and everything's exported, we've exported the first part, we've exported the transition as its own thing, and we've exported the last part. You should have files that look like this. They're different because these are the ones that I actually use and I've already rendered. I didn't want to sit here and render the entire thing again. But we need to make sure that these are all in a file where you're not going to move them around, because if you move them, it's going to affect OBS. So now we're over here in OBS and we're going to be adding in our scenes and our transitions so we can have this effect. So the first thing we're going to do is add a new scene, and we're going to call this DO1. Let's just go in, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our media source, and we'll call it DO space 1. It needs to be different because otherwise OBS has a hissy fit. We're going to go into our DO content. We're going to add our first file, and you don't have to do anything else with that. The first thing you need to do once you've put this in here is you need to go into your advanced audio properties and make sure that you have audio monitoring and outputting set. You need to make sure that this is set this way, because if you don't, you won't be able to hear what's being played, as well as your stream being able to hear what's being played. So now that we have that figured out, we need to set up our second scene, and I'm just going to call this freeze frame, because we're going to have a freeze frame here. So we're going to add in a media source, and it's going to be DO3, because that's just how I named them. DO2 is my transition. So now we have this, and as you can see, this is Dio laughing and doing his things. Make sure you go in and you set audio to monitor and output so you can hear his evil laugh. And now the final thing to have this sequence work correctly, so you need to go over here to the right to your scene transitions. And in here you need to go in and have add stinger and name it, Dio transition. Now we need to go in and we need to select our video file that we set for our transition, and we need to set the transition time. If we go back over to our Premiere profile, in here, you can see that at about this point right here is where we should probably transition, because the screen is completely filled. It's about halfway between it's filling the screen and it's coming away from it. So right about here, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna see, okay, we're here, and if we go here, the difference is about a full second. So we're gonna want the scene to transition after 1,000 milliseconds. So if we go back into OBS and we set this to, I'm going to set 900 just because it wasn't quite a full second. And I'm going to set monitoring to output and monitoring, and fade out, transpush. That's all fine in here. If we hit OK, we now have this scene transition where when it transitions back and forth, it plays this. And when it transitions back, you can see that it looks good. Sorry, it's very distracting to hear that all the time. If I switch, it looks good. You can see it transitioned well. So I gotta turn that off. It's really annoying. I estimated correctly of where it should transition. So the thing is that if we have our scene transition set down here to this, as you can see, every single time I transition, you hear that sound, and we don't want that. You don't want DO transitions every time you switch a scene. So we're going to use this function called the transition override. So you're going to right click your freeze frame and set your transition override to this. So now if I go back to my scene transition, I set to cut, I can switch between these two scenes all I want, and it's just going to cut. But if I switch over, then it does the DO transition, and I switched too quickly, so it bugged out there, but everything's set to work. So now I can manually go in here, and I can click this, and we can sit through this entire thing. And if I manually click, it transitions over. And there you go. So now, the other thing that we need to do here is we need to set this up so that it's gonna do a freeze frame. So now I've configured my webcam into this freeze frame scene, as you can see down here. And the important thing to get this all to work, to have the freeze effect, is you need to install the freeze filter. There's a link for it in the description, as well as everything else. I don't know if I've said that yet. Lioranboard and the freeze filter and everything that you should need for this will be linked in the description, including the WebM format. So if we go in here and we add filters, I've already added it, but we'll just delete it real quick. We're gonna pretend that never happened. And we're gonna go in, it's right there, freeze, it's named well, it's easy to understand. And as you can see, it's frozen. My webcam is frozen. But if I untick it, I'm back to normal. And so we're gonna leave basically everything the same here. We're just gonna have activate action, enable freeze, and deactivate action, disable freeze. So the other really important thing that you need to make sure you have installed to get this freeze frame effect to work correctly is you need to have the Stream Effects plugin suite installed, as well as the freeze filter. Now what this does is it allows us to add a source mirror, and this is an incredibly useful tool. Because if I didn't have this, if I were to apply my freeze filter to my webcam, it would apply everywhere in all of my scenes that my webcam exists. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna add a new source, we're gonna add a source mirror, we're gonna call this webcam mirror, I cannot spell, and we're going to select webcam as a source. And so now I can totally just get rid of this webcam source. And if I go in here and I add filters, I can now add the freeze filter because we installed the freeze filter plugin. And as you can see, it has frozen my webcam. And if I unclick this, I make it invisible, I'm back to I can move. So the way that we're gonna get this to activate on scene transition is through these activate actions. If we set this to activate action, enable freeze, deactivate action, disable freeze, we hit close, we switch to, this is the base scene. I will, just so you can see, this is a different scene, and we transition over, and we're frozen, and I'm making a goofy face. And I transition back, and we're back to moving again. Now to get, it's a goofy way of doing this, but to get our cool DO effect, we're going to go into filters, and we're going to add some color correction on top of the freeze frame. Now this is the color correction settings that I use. I literally just do a hue shift of 62. I actually do 62.07. And to me, this looks like the DO color effects. And so now if we put DO on top and we re-enable him, we can go through and you can see that this whole effect works correctly. And as you can see, it didn't freeze me. I'm still up here, but the down there, down here, there's a freeze framed, color corrected version of me. And so now we've finished everything. The only thing left is for me to get rid of this webcam, and we're gonna go set up Lioranboard. So the absolute final thing that you have to download and install is the Lioranboard program. Now this is essentially a virtual stream deck that you can use just generally. You don't have to use it for this purpose. But in this case, what we're gonna be using from Lioranboard is its capabilities to hook in with your Twitch. So the first time that you launch Lioranboard, you're going to have a big tutorial pop up that'll step you through all the things you need to do to make sure that this can connect with your OBS client correctly. So once you've downloaded Lioranboard and you've set up the WebSocket stuff and you've gone through the tutorial, you're gonna need to add your first new deck. I've already got mine created, so we're just gonna jump into that and look at it. I've already got a test button here that we're gonna delete, and we're gonna create it again. So we're gonna create a blank button, and we're just gonna name it Warudo Test. I cannot type for some reason. We're gonna go in and we're gonna add commands. And so this is very important. This is where we're actually setting this button to go through a set of commands. And so in this case, a set of scene switches that will create this seamless flow between each of our scenes and create the illusion that we've got, you know, this one broadcast that's got a bunch of stuff happening to it, even though there's a bunch of moving parts in the background. So the first thing we're gonna do is set it to transition to our scene down here, DO1. And so we're gonna do that with a delay of 0 milliseconds, because that means it's gonna happen just instantly right off the bat. The second one, now we're going to have it transition to freeze frame. And this is where you need to do some math. You kind of need to look at what your clip length is and stuff like that. So I already have gone in and I've determined that after 5 3/4 seconds, I need this to transition. And it's as simple as just going into Premiere Pro and counting frames or whatever you need to do to estimate this. And then finally, I need this to switch back to whatever scene that I started from. And in this case, that's going to happen after 16,900 seconds. And so now that we've built this, we're going to go in and add Twitch triggers. I had to move my cam because I realized that you couldn't see this earlier, but you're going to click point redeem and you need to make sure that the point redeem is the exact same name as what it is in your channel point redemptions. So as you can see down here, now that I've moved my camera, there is an option to redeem Warudo. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to go back over to Lioranboard and I'm just going to paste it in. And so now if I hit done, everything should work seamlessly. So now hopefully when I hit redeem here, it's going to transition between my scenes. And it worked perfectly. Now, unfortunately, because of how I'm going through recording this, you couldn't see the freeze frame webcam effect, but I promise it works. We tested it earlier. This was just a proof that, hey, if I click this button and I hit redeem, it's gonna play through everything. So that's it, basically. At this point, you have set up Lioranboard, you've created your video, you've created your transition, you should be completely fine to go. And you can do this with tons of different videos. Well, that's just about it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you like this video and it was useful. I also stream over at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Caleb.exe. Come hang out, come chat. If you've got any questions about this or the process or you want to see them in action, come on over. It costs absolutely nothing except a little bit of your time. And I swear, I'm a fun person to interact with. So thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Check out all my links, social media in the description. And I'll see you over at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Caleb.exe, 8 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.